This is Bruce Faulconer. You're listening to the Kasanova podcast, Hawaii's #1 podcast. Hi, I'm Bruce Faulconer. As a composer and performer, many of you know me from the music I created for Dragon Ball Z. I want to acknowledge and thank you, my amazing fans. You have been an integral part of my inspiration, success, and lots of fun over the years. I've had so many requests to add to my Dragon Ball Z American Soundtracks. So with that in mind, I'm writing this very special piece of music dedicated just to you. The piece will be about 10 minutes long and include strings, brass, guitar, and percussion. It will feature a live chamber orchestra, so in effect, you will also be helping studio musicians who have been greatly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Cake Mix Recording Studio will be hosting our performance of my new piece in a studio recording with the chamber orchestra. Over the past 2 decades, you have continued to enjoy and recognize my Dragon Ball Z music. You will always have my gratitude and appreciation for the support you have given me.
All right, and welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Kasanova podcast. I'm your host, Mekel Kasanova, and today we have with us a very special guest, the one, the only, the legend, the iconic Bruce Faulconer. Bruce, how are you doing today?
Hi, Mekel, and hello out there, Hawaii. Welcome to this podcast, and I am ever thankful of my fans in Hawaii. It goes back to the Tower Records days when they carried my CD soundtracks for Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, I remember that, man. Has it been that long since Tower Records? Has it been?
It's been a while.
Man, I remember the
And
Tower Records that used to be in the mall in Ala Moana. Just, oh God, that's a nostalgia trip. Anyway, how are you doing today? How's your day been so far?
I've been doing well. I've been writing to a bunch of people responding to their questions about Dragon Amnesty and telling me that they were going to help support and spread the word. And so I'm really thankful for, all my fans out there who are helping make Dragon Amnesty become a reality. And so since I said Dragon Amnesty, well, what the heck is that? It's like I'm writing this new piece, and I titled it Dragon Amnesty, and so it's a brand new kind of it's a composition that I haven't just started writing. I've written a couple of pages, and it's going to be high action and high powered, and it'll have a little essence of the nostalgia of Dragon Ball Z in it as well. And so if you liked my Dragon Ball Z music, you're going to like this piece too. And I even have posted just this past week a few pieces I've done recently, including one called High Voltage, for a theme for High Voltage, which is an animation and development that Chris is on Deviant Art with his High Voltage development. And he commissioned me to write a theme, and it was going to be a minute long, and it ended up being a little over a minute and a half. So Dragon Amnesty is going to be 10 to 15 minutes long, and if I do that kind of ratio of my inspiration impact on myself, who knows? It may be 15 minutes and more. So you never know how a piece is going to go, especially when I have the freedom to write something that's not limited by time length of the picture or the scene in the show.
Yeah, and definitely when it comes to like your work has inspired generations, and you know, it's amazing. Like you've done so much over the years. And I know fans love your work for Dragon Ball Z, but you've done more than just that, you know, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about your work. Like talk about you've done work for movies, for TV shows. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, my first TV show was Your New House with Michael Holligan,
Hmm.
and that lasted for 12 years, and so um, and then that production company did a show called Reality of Speed, which I
Hmm.
did some heavy metal, screaming guitars kind of music for, and I did a spin-off of Your New House called Your House and Home,
Hmm.
and the the latter two of those, this Reality Speed and Your House and Home, happened after Dragon Ball Z,
Hmm.
and Your New House happened before and during Dragon Ball Z.
Hmm.
So those did another show called To Life, which was kind of a celebration of life and health and fitness,
Hmm.
and then movies. I've done one of the first movies was called Scenes in the Dark, and I wrote a musical play with a lyricist, David Arthur. And
Hmm.
I did the music, and my CD for that, I recently resurrected the whole musical play and put it on CD, and it's available now on your fine digital outlets out there. Um, and it was a musical play within a movie,
Hmm.
so it was very interesting. The main character um, was a composer, playwright, actor uh, in the movie, and he was uh, trying to resurrect himself from the abyss of his art,
Hmm.
and his career had taken a nosedive, and so he started writing this musical play about himself, and then it ends up at the end, he's premiering the play.
Hmm.
So we see him writing the music that I wrote. Uh, so I'm his voice, his musical voice, as it were, and so that was a really fun participating in the shooting and everything.
Hmm.
And a few years after Dragon Ball Z, and just a few years ago, actually, I did a mystery movie called The Bystander Theory. And
Hmm.
it's on AT&T Direct, or the different AT&T television, and sometimes it's been on Reels.
Hmm.
But I did a full orchestra that I performed all the parts. They didn't have a live orchestra budget,
Wow.
so I had to perform all the parts. There's about, it's like doing a 60 voice orchestra, and you're doing every part one at a time. And there was about 55, 60 minutes of music on that. And that too is available on Amazon and iTunes and all the fine digital outlets
Hmm.
um, out there. And I'm excited to announce too that this past year I've been working on an animation film and development that's
Hmm.
also an audiobook and an interactive book that's coming out in October. And it's called A Little Spark. And
Nice.
you can find that on bethatspark.com, but more information about it. But I wrote 12 songs with the lyricist, and he also kind of he started out with some ideas for some music, and so we sort of co-wrote the 12 songs.
Hmm.
I did one song out of it that was a little more complicated than he wanted, because he just kind of wanted a lullaby,
Hmm.
and I guess I just was so inspired by the lyrics and the story that I did this full blown, almost Broadway classical music kind of a song, and somewhat reminiscent. One of my favorite composer lyricists is Stephen Sondheim,
Mm-hmm.
and so between Chris and I got out. I just went over the top and I wrote this huge song. And so then I went back and I wrote another version just called The Lullaby. So and it's titled My Little One. And
Mm-hmm.
so far the lullaby, My Little One, will come out in October with the other songs. And I posted recently, Chris had his camera going and I didn't know it. Chris Parsons, uh, he's the director, producer, and writer of
Mm-hmm.
A Little Spark, and he was doing this candid thing of me directing and talking to various performers. So there's
Mm-hmm.
a couple of videos out there of me conducting, uh, me teaching, one of the musicians how to sing the part, and so there's one called Icing where I'm talking with Remy while the music's playing in the background, and Chris captured that on tape, and that was pretty cool. Then he ends the little promo. It doesn't have all the music in it, but he ends it with a little bit of the animation
Mm-hmm.
in the background with the finished performance. So you hear this rough conversation between composer and singer, and then it morphs into the finished track. It's really cool, and it's humbling to see yourself, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like a fly on the wall and watching the development of the production go on.
Nice, nice. And what's one of the things like I wanted to ask you about is like when it comes to music, like what got you into music? Like what was your inspiration? And what was that moment that just ensnared you when it comes to music?
I was really fortunate to have great teachers around.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 10, I started to learn the piano, and you do all the things that you do when you're learning piano. You got your technique books and your scales,
Mm-hmm.
and my teacher, invariably Mrs. Pauls, she gave me a book of staff paper, blank staff paper.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I'm going to teach you, and you're going to learn by practicing how to write treble clefs and bass clefs and time signatures and whole notes and half notes and quarter notes. And so you'd sit there and, you fill a page full of all these things. And it's like, that's not what this stuff is for. It's for writing music. And so I started writing little pieces into the manuscript book. And she took it as an opportunity. And if I practiced my lesson and did well in the first 55 minutes of the lesson, she would let me play my pieces for her.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like the last 5 minutes for me was the best part because I could play my new pieces that I had written. And that just sort of continued. I got into junior high and learned how to play trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
And then high school, when I was a freshman, my band director saw all that enthusiasm in me and asked me if I would be interested in writing a piece for the band. And so I took one of my piano pieces and I created a band version of that piece. And so my band director taught me how to conduct. So I learned all of that. And then at the end of the year in the spring semester, I got to conduct the band during the concert. And all the seniors were going nuts over this because they liked me and they liked my piece that we were learning in band.
Mm-hmm.
But about 4 of them wanted to be student conductors too. So the band director let them conduct other pieces during the concert. He was a great guy.
Mr. Donathorn. That was in Northern California, where I was in high school at the time. And went off to college, and I was going to be an aerospace engineer to make my parents happy. And it's like, well, while I did, my core requirements as a freshman aerospace engineering student, I took band, a piano course, classical piano course from one of the music major staff, and a trumpet performance class from one of the music major staff's professors. And so it's like about almost to the end of the first semester, I approached the director of the music theory composition department, and I had my briefcase, which was an old Samsonite briefcase that was about one of those big ones that was like 5 inches wide. But it carried all my music that I'd been writing since I was 10. And I showed him all this stuff, and I asked Jerry if you like my music that I've written so far, and if I could take the final exam for freshman theory 605, and if I passed that with an A, would you consider letting me be a music major? So he let me take the final exam, and I hadn't even gone to one of the music theory classes. And I aced the final exam to 605, got an advanced placement requisite for the class, and changed my major. And thank goodness for Leonard Bernstein's Young People's Concerts. I watched those as a kid, and it was like I was prepping for that final exam in Music 605. By watching those, I knew what they were talking about, and so it just kind of all worked out. And so that's kind of how I got started. And then after I was a master's, and I finished my doctorate in music composition as well, and I was a professor for a while, and it's like, well, I don't have enough time. I love teaching music, but I don't have enough time to write as much music as I would like. And I was a professor for a couple of years, assistant professor, a couple of years at SMU, that's Southern Methodist University. And I got invited by Ohio State University to be a postdoctoral fellow. You have to have your doctorate, and you have to be invited. And they only gave 13 of these throughout Ohio State's
wow,
some 225 college disciplines. So there were 13 of those throughout those 225. So rarefied atmosphere of being accepted. And so I got the postdoctoral fellowship and became a composer in residence there. I went up there, and all I had to do was write music. I went to my OSU office, and it was just glorious. I had my piano and wrote and performed the music with various Ohio State musicians. And then I got invited for a second one, which was, nobody had ever gotten a second one, especially. And I was only the second person in the fine arts and the very first person in music to even get one. And then the first person to get one twice. And remember, it's just 13 of them throughout all of those disciplines. So it was crazy wonderful. I was really blessed to have that opportunity. And then while I was in Ohio there, I got an Ohio Arts Council grant, and a National Endowment for the Arts. And Ohio was a great place to write because of those opportunities. And so I did that that helped sustain me for another year in writing music. And I was also a visiting lecturer at Denison University, which is like 30 miles east of Columbus. And so I enjoyed that. And once again, enjoyed teaching, but it was another one of those moments where it was like, wow, I really love just writing. And that summer I went to the MacDowell Colony, which is an artist colony in New Hampshire, founded by Edward MacDowell's wife and his estate. And it's where various artists and musicians can go and spend a term doing their art. In my case, music. There were, there are playwrights and writers, artists, both visual and sculptors, and just all kinds of disciplines. And you get your own cabin, and of course, in the musicians' composer's cabin, you have your own grand piano, and it's wonderful. There's a fireplace over on one side, and you've got your living room, and there's a place where you can rest, and they bring you your lunch in a picnic basket that they put on the porch, and they don't disturb you.
Wow!
So it's like this immersive time of just me and my music, and the muse of the ghosts of the people who had been in that studio writing music, because up on the wall above the fireplace were these plaques, and the people who had gone to MacDowell Colony and had residence in that particular cabin etched their names and the year they were there. And I'm looking at all these names on the plaques, and they're people I know from their famous composers, and the inspiration just kind of poured in, seeing all those people who had been in that room, played on that piano. And so I wrote a sonata for flute and piano while I was there, and a concerto for trumpet and orchestra. And so it was just glorious. And it's like, I've got to figure out a way how to do this all the time. And I knew Dallas from being there with SMU, and I knew it pretty well. And that's where I ended up just coming back, and I started just knocking on doors and saying, would you like me to do music for you? And so it's one of those things where you just have to believe in what you can do and what you've done. And during that time, when I first got back to Dallas, I got a commission to write a piece of music for the Dallas Symphony. And
wow.
through the McLean Paris Foundation commissioned me to do that piece. And so then that was another kind of a commission and grant that kept me going for another year. So I was writing that piece, Washington on the Brazos. That's been played by a lot of orchestras around Texas. And I have other orchestral pieces that have been played around the United States and have won prizes, various prizes and stuff. So
don't be humble. That's amazing.
I love writing for orchestra. I love writing for who wants me to write. and so I found that TV and film and has been maybe the biggest patrons, but I love wherever it comes from. A guy from Bethany College, David Lowell, a violist, commissioned me to write a viola piece, and so I wrote a fantasia for him. And it was fun going up there and talking to the students. And of course, by that time I was working on Dragon Ball Z as well, and they were a great audience. There must have been 300 students in the room that day.
Wow.
And of course, you get the same kind of thing. I've enjoyed going around to various Dragon Ball Z related cons. and hoping. Almost went to KamehamehaCon this past May, and of course the COVID thing
Yeah.
punched that in the gut, and they've had to delay it until January, and hopefully we can do it in January. So I plan to do that in January if it happens. And so,
and speaking of that, like I guess the one Dragon Ball question I'd like to ask is like how you got into working on the show. Yeah, I know you get asked this a lot, but I just that's the one question I want to ask you, and then I want to speak about Dragon Amnesty because I'm very, very curious about that.
Okay, I was going about my day, working a little bit on writing some music and doing a little marketing. You have to do that if you're a working composer. It's get your name out there. And I got this wild telephone call, and you get phone calls, and sometimes you just gotta start to wonder, is this for real? And this guy, hi, I'm and it was Gen Fukunaga, and it's like, I was calling to see if you might be interested in writing the music for Dragon Ball Z. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go with it just to see if this is real or not. And as he started talking, it's like, yeah, this is pretty real. It's a good thing I put on my inviting business-like attitude and was friendly and warm and receptive to this telephone call. As he was, telling me about Dragon Ball Z, I was writing down notes about the story and about what he needed and how long each episode was, the 22 and a half minutes and stuff. And as he described things, I started to get this inspiration. So like I oftentimes happens when I do get an inspiration, that happened with Bystander Theory too, when I got that call. But I, of course, those moments, you never have a piece of sheet music right there in front of you like you would need. So I take a usual, just a piece of set of notebook, and I'm going. Let me see if I can get that in the picture. I'm going lines. So I'm writing five lines across a page so that I can have a staff, and so I create my own staff. Because he's talking about, and I'm getting this musical idea in my head. I don't want it to go away. So, and some things don't ever get to be a part of it. But while I was writing those notes, I got this fight for the right, find all the Dragon Balls. So I write out this little lyric and notes, which turns into the Dragon Ball Z theme. Da, 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 and so on, And later on in one of the episodes, where they're going as Super Saiyan 3, and it's like, whoa, this needs to be ergonometrically related somehow to Goku, who I identify with the Dragon Ball Z theme. And so I chop the Dragon Ball Z theme in half, and I borrow the second series of notes from that first idea I ever had while talking to them about the show. And so I have to split this in my head. Da 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 da. And of course, as you know, that becomes SSJ3. And then parts of the theme also morph into SSJ. Da 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 da. That's from SSJ3. Which is from da 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 from Dragon Ball Z theme. And so they're totally meshed together. And was an idea just waiting to give birth for the right moment, which was that moment when Goku becomes SSJ3. And so there's lots of other little places that are like that, that I really enjoyed making that development over that large arc of Dragon Ball Z. One moment was like at the very end, using the Earth theme and the Dragon Ball Z theme, this time triumphantly in major key. Da 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 da, while ba da ba da da da. They're both intertwined together, going on as a counter melody to each other. But they just didn't have very much time to say when Goku's saying goodbye and going off, in episode 291. And it's like, darn it, why didn't they make this longer? And so those are moments that I really relish. And I think to this day that they're kind of like embedded and nobody thinks about them. And but there's a little bit of insight into writing.
I mean, I just have to say, like, because your music, I mean, really defined that show. Like, it's so iconic. Like, when you think of those moments, the Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan, the first Super Saiyan transformation, like, your music just really, like, when you think of those moments, when you think of, Vegeta's theme, it's just you. Like, you really brought that show to life.
I like the Ginyu time when he transforms too. It was like, this has got to be an epic piece. And then there's other playful moments where, like, Ginyu turns into a frog.
Yeah.
And he's in love with
this is Bulma, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And I quoted Tristan and Isolde, the famous leitmotif, the love theme, which is the whole basis for this forbidden love. And so the tongue-in-cheek there is that this is not going to happen because it's going to just be forbidden love. You're a frog. So it's like da 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 da, with those Wagner turgid famous chords that drove music theorists berserk, and all in the 20th and 21st century. They could never figure out how to analyze it. And of course, it's the core of his opera. But it was fun to lay homage at his feet and other inspiration. While I mentioned Ginyu transformation too, it's like there's just a little thank you, Carl Orff's Carmina Burana. Just sort of like stylistic essence of some of that power that was in some of those sacred and profane songs that he wrote. And I've always felt like Dragon Ball Z has had many styles in it because of the huge arc, and there's different series had different characters being specialized, and so I made sure to just kind of like follow this arc and make everything as epic as it could be through the arc.
Awesome. And for fans,
Dragon Ball's Amnesty, I wanted to reach out, and I've been wanting to do this for some time, and have been prodded and asked to please do something. But as a tribute to my fans, I would write Dragon Amnesty.
Yeah, and that's what I want to dive into next, because if fans loved your work in Dragon Ball Z, they're gonna love Dragon Amnesty, and let's talk about that. Let's get some more details about that.
Well, finally, I'm going to write something that's a longer form. This one's going to be 10. I'm suspect that I'm going to get carried away, and it'll maybe even edge to 15 minutes long. So it'll depend on just how the arc of the composition goes, but could be. So I thought, okay, I'm going to reach out to my fans too, and just ask them to be my producers, my executive producers, and if they can help me with Dragon Amnesty by their support, a little bit from a lot of people could go a long way and help make Dragon Amnesty actually happen. As we're speaking today, there's 22 days left in the Kickstarter that we went live with a little over a week ago. And so we're reaching out to everybody and hoping that the Dragon Ball Z fans will check out the Kickstarter page for Dragon Amnesty and do what they can to help, and also maybe spread the word to their friends. I'm hoping it'll be a grassroots thing where we have a lot of prize incentives for people, and they're on the page, and I think you're going to give them a link.
Yep, give me a link to it down below in the description.
So that'll be really cool too. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I've already started writing the piece. It's just a couple of pages of what'll be the opening. And I'm definitely going to have a style that evokes Dragon Ball Z and puts you on your edge of your seat. And another inspiration, I really loved the Halo long form pieces that were done. Really awesome music. That guy's a great composer too. And so I'm going to make this battle between my dragon, and I think he's a good dragon, and so he'll be between good and evil. And it's funny how dragons kind of like have been following my life, because A Little Spark is about a magic dragon. And who knew? It's like, wow, this is really great. I've got another dragon. And that's coming out, like I said, on October 15th. But the Dragon Amnesty, I think it closes September 18th. So just 22 days from now. So every bit of support will be needed to make our goal, and it's going to help musicians, because I'm going to have a set of live chamber musicians in a chamber orchestra. So that's a big chunk of expense in producing the tracks, and people are going to get a live, a quality download. There's going to be an autographed CD. We're doing Dragon Amnesty, the T-shirt, and with a cool logo. And we have some other incentives and prizes as well that are up there on the site, and so we'll probably add a few. I've got one that I need to implement into the site. Probably put it a medium to higher level. I'm going to autograph my score to Android 18, which is the title song on my Android 18 CD that I wrote. That was a fun piece that I wrote, and Meredith McCoy did the lyrics to that. And she is a phenomenal singer. She's just an excellent singer. The piece is very challenging from the standpoint that it's aleatoric. It is 12-tone another word for 12-tone music.
Mm-hmm.
And she just has a rock solid performance level, every note in tune, all the right notes, beautiful presentation, and feeling and character in the song, and great lyrics. It was fun working on lyrics with her. She did most of the lyrics, and it was just an awesome experience. We spent about a week in the studio um, performing that song.
Wow.
It has huge layer of parts. There are background rhythmic tracks that are her speaking and voice being altered digitally, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's counter melodies and high background melodies going along at the same time, and it's just an awesome piece.
Awesome.
Dragon Amnesty is going to be instrumental.
Mm-hmm.
The excitement there will be as well with the live chamber orchestra.
Wow.
So, do you have any questions about it, about Dragon Amnesty?
Well, I do like so. One, let's see. I've got about 6 questions. So one of the questions I want to have is, what is going to be like, I guess, your primary instrument you're going to be focusing on as far as like the melodic theme of it? Because I know with Dragon Ball Z, it was primarily heavy metal riffs and whatnot. So is it going to be similar in that style or just more grand orchestral?
There will be grand orchestral, and I'm going to have a guitar player. If you listen, also I just released my commission, the high voltage commission. I may have mentioned that earlier in the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I released the first 30 seconds with a little visual teaser, and yet the last minute of high voltage, you're on your edge of your seat because the guitar just goes wildly nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Performance by Andy Timmons, fabulous guitar player. But also, I've moved up to a Digital Performer 10. It's going to be my workstation that I compose and perform on.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you, that's a bear. I'm learning all new things because it's different from the performer that I'm accustomed to
Mm-hmm.
working with. So it's like I've been looking at the manuals and just learning extra things. But the advantage to it is I've loaded in all these new virtual instruments and added a huge amount of new sounds to my battery of sounds. So I'll use a few of my key Dragon Ball Z sounds from the past, but I'll have all these new sounds too. And I'm excited. I've got these great taiko drums and a great set of symphony strings and brass and woodwind instruments and other percussion instruments and everything. And so all of those forces together will make an epic song, epic instrumental out of Dragon Amnesty.
Nice. And then the best part of it is you're not restrained within, like when you were having to do Dragon Ball Z, like you had to make, you had to make it fit within that time frame or whatever the scene was. Like this one, you have complete creative freedom to just be as expressive as you want. And I think as an artist, that's the greatest part.
It's also the scariest part because you have this blank canvas in front of you. It's like, okay, what am I going to do? Help! Whereas when you're looking at the picture, you can go, oh wow, here's cool dialogue. Oh, and this is great action, and this cutting is cool, and this character is great, and so I map out all the details of what I'm seeing, and it just soaks in. And as you do that, it becomes a choreography, a ballet of music to picture to dialogue. It becomes operatic in scope as well, and so it's kind of a fusion. And so there's some bit of inspiration there, and then the timeline, the deadline is like you approach pure fear as I've got to get this finished by deadline or I'm doomed, and so it kind of like all flows. And so that's another. They each have their own challenge. So I'm looking forward to that blank canvas and imagining my story, which I'm already got cooking in my head. What my dragon is doing, and how he's going to triumph and prevail. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. And should the Kickstarter, which I'm very confident that it will, hit its goal and Dragon Amnesty comes out, would you be looking towards like doing like a sequel to like a Dragon Amnesty 2, or like what are some projects you're thinking you might do down the road?
Who knows? I always love writing music. It's Dragon Amnesty on Kickstarter. It's a do or die thing. So we've approached a little bit of movement so far here with 22 days left to go, but we really need a surge of grassroots effort to make it actually succeed. It's you guys out there who are the fans who I'm writing this piece for you, and I'm hoping that you can in turn just go to Dragon Amnesty on Kickstarter and say, this would be great. I'd love to have this piece of music that was written just for me, and I can be a big part of it with just a very small amount of grassroots help from me individually through, we just need a few thousand people to say, hey, this is great. Out of some 26 million Dragon Ball Z fans, probably more out there, but that were on Cartoon Network when my music was playing on Cartoon Network for those 8 years, and now on the internet. And it just will take a small fraction, and all of us together can make Dragon Amnesty happen. But we only have 22 days to make Kickstarter happy, which would make me extremely gratified and grateful to all of you for taking the time and the commitment to what I am hoping to do for you.
Yeah, definitely. And one question before we go is like, what advice would you give to the audience that may be looking to get into music production or just music in general? Like what would be your goal? Like if you were speaking to your younger self, like if the audience was your younger self, like what would you say to them?
I'm glad that my younger self did what I did. And there's a lot of people out there who are the younger people that I come across who are asking to do this. And it's like, what do I do? And I tell them about my experience, but I also say, if you love music so much, you need to devote yourself to it. You need to learn about it, study, take it in your, if you're still in junior high or high school, take band, take choir, take orchestra, do one of those things, take private lessons if you can, and learn about music. There's no fast track. The more you know about music, the better you can be as a musician. If you want to be a singer, learn how to sing. Don't just sing. Learn, practice, learn your craft. If you want to be a composer, learn your craft. Even somebody like Beethoven would walk around with 18th century counterpoint books on counterpoint and study them. Here's this magnificent composer through the ages studying somebody else's teaching about writing music. It's all about knowledge and art and craft, and the more of all of that you have, the better musician you can be. It's simple as that. So if you think you want to be a musician, embrace it. If you find that you're not going to be able to be a professional musician, embrace it for the joy that it brings you and the sanity. It can be a beacon of sanity in a crazy time, or just a calming influence in a moment where you need that retrospective, introspective look at just being peaceful, sitting down to play the piano. I love doing that. It's one of my hobbies, and yet it's what I do. And then I write music too as a hobby sometimes on just something that I wanted to do. So I've written a few preludes recently for piano, and so it's all about, as a young person, I would say to you out there, do what you can to learn about what you love. The more you know about what you love, the more it will bring back to you.
Yeah, most definitely. And I lied. I actually have one final question for you. Did you have fun?
Yes, thank you. This is great. Mekel, I really hope I'm putting that on the right syllable.
No, it's fine.
Which is right, Mekel or Mekel?
It really depends. My mom fluctuates between both, so I just answer to both.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you, Mekel. It's been wonderful, and thank you, Hawaii. I actually lived there for 3 years. Little trivia. I was too young to enjoy it too much, but just old enough to enjoy romping around in the beach. So it was great being on Oahu. And I remember fondly one of the songs, Malika Maka, with the Christmas song. And so,
oh yeah, the Merry Kalikimaka. Yeah.
So just one of those ear remembrances that sometimes can haunt you for a week. But thank you, Hawaii, and thank you, Mekel, for this podcast and your support of Dragon Amnesty.
Yeah. And is there anything you want to leave the audience with before we go?
I just once again I appreciate if you guys can get out the Dragon Amnesty news with your friends and share it, and any support that you can give me is greatly appreciated. I'm very happy and thrilled to be writing this piece for you.
And with that being said, people, this wraps up the podcast, and links to everything from Dragon Amnesty to, Bruce's IMDb and other links, as well as the social media links. Everything will be listed down below in the description. So make sure you go over there. Definitely make sure you go over to Dragon Amnesty on Kickstarter and support, because this is going to be an amazing project. And with that being said, you can catch this episode of the podcast on all major outlets. If you're watching in video format, you see everything below where it's on audio. So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and we also have Patreon if you want to support us there as well. And with that being said, this is Bruce and Mekel. We are signing out. You guys have a great one. Aloha, and have a great day.
Aloha, guys.
Hi, I'm Bruce Faulconer. As a composer and performer, many of you know me from the music I created for Dragon Ball Z. I want to acknowledge and thank you, my amazing fans. You have been an integral part of my inspiration, success, and lots of fun over the years. I've had so many requests to add to my Dragon Ball Z American Soundtracks. So with that in mind, I'm writing this very special piece of music dedicated just to you. The piece will be about 10 minutes long and include strings, brass, guitar, and percussion. It will feature a live chamber orchestra, so in effect, you will also be helping studio musicians who have been greatly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Cake Mix Recording Studio will be hosting our performance of my new piece in a studio recording with the chamber orchestra. Over the past 2 decades, you have continued to enjoy and recognize my Dragon Ball Z music. You will always have my gratitude and appreciation for the support you have given me.
Hey, did you enjoy this episode of the Kasanova podcast? Well, I'm sure you did. And since you did, and you're wondering where else you can find it on every podcasting outlet. Yes, that includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Launchpad DM by Podcast One, and so much more. And the only thing I ask of you is if you truly enjoyed it, even if you didn't enjoy it, please leave a rating and tell us what you thought of it, what you like, what you didn't like, and everything in between. And also, if you're looking for video formats of this podcast and many more, you'll be able to find them on youtube.com/Mekel Kasanova, as well as on twitch.tv/Mekel Kasanova, and new episodes every single Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, with that being said, this is Mekel Kasanova, Hawaii's favorite YouTuber. I am signing out. You guys have a great one.